In the lush suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina, where oak-lined streets hum with morning birdsong, Emily Thompson lives in a colonial-style home that turns heads. A pristine white picket fence frames the picture-perfect scene, a manicured lawn straight out of a magazine, and vibrant rose beds by the porch that are Emily's pride and joy. In 2025, at 42, she's the envy of the neighborhood, a devoted wife, a doting mom to 3 kids, 12-year-old twins Noah and Liam with their infectious grins, and 8-year-old Sophie, who trails crayons wherever she goes. Above all, Emily is the perfect partner to Michael Thompson, the renowned heart surgeon the city dubs the hero in a white coat. Their life seems like the American dream brought to life. The house buzzes with laughter. Weekend BBQs fill the air with the smoky aroma of grilled burgers, and evenings find the family curled up on the oversized sofa for movie nights. Michael, with his salt and pepper hair and sharp gaze, is a regular speaker at hospital galas, where he shares stories of life-saving surgeries with a humility that leaves audiences in awe. "I couldn't do it without Emily," he often says, arm around her, his smile gleaming under chandelier light. Other wives glance at Emily with a mix of envy and admiration, while she quietly plays the role of steadfast support. But beneath the polished surface, cracks are forming, like a chilly draft slipping through an unlatched window. Lately, Michael stays out late, blaming understaffed hospital shifts and surgeries that drag into the night. Weekends, he vanishes for golf with colleagues, a new habit Emily never questioned before. Their once intimate dinners have dwindled to clipped exchanges. "You eaten yet?" Or, "What's the kids' schedule this week?" Emily tells herself it's just work stress. Michael's recent promotion to head of cardiology has only brightened his star, and she believes patience is her duty as it's been through 15 years of marriage. One Tuesday morning, as sunlight filters through the curtains, Emily sorts clothes for the dry cleaner, a routine chore for a mom. She pulls Michael's gym bag from the closet corner, where he tosses it after late workouts, the bag slightly unzipped. And as she opens it, a crumpled white dress shirt spills out. She's about to toss it in the laundry when her heart stops. On the collar, a vivid red lipstick stain glares back, a shade she's never worn. Her hands tremble, and the shirt slips to the floor. That's not her lipstick. She stands frozen in the silent room, the ticking clock deafening. Images of Michael's warm smile at the hospital gala, his soft "you're my everything," blur like fading photographs. The lipstick stain whispers something cruel, planting a question she's not ready to face. Is this American dream truly hers, or just a beautiful facade hiding a painful truth? In the quiet of their bedroom, the bedside lamp casts a glow on Emily Thompson's pale face. Michael's shirt lies on the floor, the red lipstick stain a silent accusation she can't ignore. Her heart pounds. Not with anger, not yet, but with an eerie sense, like she's crossed a threshold with no way back. She picks up the shirt, fingers tracing the stain, and resolves, "I need the truth, no matter how much it hurts." The next morning, Michael's his usual self, crisp in a suit, planting a quick kiss on Emily's cheek before rushing out with coffee in hand. "Late surgery tonight, don't wait up," he says, his tone smooth but distant, like an actor playing the perfect husband. Emily nods with a smile, but when the door shuts, it's as if the ground beneath her cracks. She's never been one to snoop. Prying feels foreign to the Emily who's always trusted in honesty and fidelity, but that lipstick has changed everything. That afternoon, with the kids at school, Noah and Liam at basketball practice, Sophie scribbling in art class, Emily sits at the dining table, Michael's phone in front of her. He'd left it on the kitchen counter, a rare slip. The lock screen glows and she tries a password. Their anniversary, 06/15/2010. Wrong. Sophie's birthday, wrong again. Then, with a sinking feeling, she types his promotion date, 03/04/2024. The screen unlocks and her stomach drops. A text from R. Harper pops up. "Last night was amazing, Mike. When are you leaving her?" Emily's blood runs cold. She scrolls, uncovering hundreds of messages spanning 6 months. Flirty words, intimate hotel photos, and jabs at her. Another BBQ at Emily's? Poor thing, thinks she's the perfect housewife. Rachel Harper, the young cardiologist Michael once introduced as a promising colleague at a hospital event. Emily recalls Rachel's sharp eyes and smug handshake, her smile dripping with pretense. She sets the phone down, hands shaking so hard she knocks over a glass of water. But Emily doesn't cry, not yet. She stands, wipes the spill, and grabs her laptop to dig deeper. Rachel Harper isn't hard to find. LinkedIn, Instagram, articles praising her as medicine's rising star. The more Emily searches, the worse it gets. One Instagram post shows Rachel at an upscale Italian restaurant, the same place Michael proposed 15 years ago, with a caption, "Unforgettable night with someone special." The date matches a night Michael claimed he was on call. That night, with the kids tucked in bed, Emily waited for Michael in the dimly lit living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting shadows across her face, now stripped of its usual warmth. Michael walked in, coat slung over his shoulder, startled to see her awake. "You're still up? It's late," he said, a hint of strain in his voice. "Michael," she said, her tone calm but chilling, "you're sleeping with Rachel Harper, aren't you?" The air froze. Michael didn't flinch or stammer as she'd expected. He draped his coat over a chair, sat across from her, and met her gaze with a coldness she'd never seen. "Yeah," he said, like he was confirming a meeting. "And I want a divorce, Emily. I'm done with this life. With you." His words hit like a blade, sharp and merciless. Emily clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms to stay composed. "Done?" she echoed, her voice trembling for the first time. 15 years, Michael. 3 kids. Everything I've done to build your life, you call that done?" Michael shrugged, standing as if the conversation was over. "You'll be fine. I'll handle the finances. But I need to live for me, not this perfect little charade." He headed upstairs, leaving Emily alone in the room once filled with memories. But inside her, a spark ignited, not of pain, but of resolve. If Michael thought she'd quietly sign papers and fade away, he was wrong. The biggest mistake of his life. Emily Thompson sat in a sleek law office in downtown Charlotte, sunlight streaming through tall windows, sharpening the edges of her face, no longer marked by quiet resignation. Across from her was Patricia Hayes, a divorce attorney nicknamed the White Shark for never losing a case against cheating husbands. Patricia adjusted her glasses, locking eyes with Emily. "If you're ready to fight, we need everything: documents, proof, and patience. Michael thinks you'll roll over. Prove him wrong." Emily nodded, clutching a cold coffee. She wasn't the wife who just smiled and nodded at hospital galas anymore. The lipstick stain, Rachel Harper's texts, and Michael's icy divorce demand had awakened something she'd forgotten: her strength. "I want it all, Patricia. Whatever he's hiding, I'll find it." That night, after the kids, Noah, Liam, and Sophie were asleep, Emily cracked open Michael's study safe. She'd always thought it held just house deeds and insurance policies, but now she saw it differently. Inside were stacks of papers, contracts, receipts, bank statements. She spread them across the dining table, each sheet a puzzle piece to a picture she didn't yet grasp. Then she found it: regular withdrawals from their joint account, $5,000. $8,000, 1 month as high as $12,000, funneled to something called Blue Ridge Ventures. Over 2 years, nearly $300,000 had vanished without a word. The next morning, Emily called the bank, her voice steady but razor sharp. The clerk hesitated before confirming. Blue Ridge Ventures was an LLC solely in Michael Thompson's name. No trace of where the money went next. Emily hung up, her gut screaming this was bigger than an affair. Michael hadn't just betrayed her. He'd built a secret world where she and the kids didn't exist. She brought the papers to Patricia, who frowned as she scanned them. "This isn't just tax dodging or hidden assets, Emily. This scale, it could be money laundering or worse." Patricia paused, studying her. "You want to keep digging? Once we start, there's no turning back." Emily didn't blink. "Keep going." A name came up in their next meeting: Dr. James Carter, a former doctor at Ashford Hospital, where Michael worked. Patricia mentioned him almost casually. Carter was in Michael's department but left quietly 3 years ago. Word is, he knew some dirt about cardiology. You should talk to him. Emily tracked James down after a few persistent calls. He agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in Gastonia, a 40-minute drive from Charlotte. James Carter looked older than his years, gray streaking his hair, his eyes heavy with an unseen burden. He ordered a black coffee, studying Emily for a long moment before speaking. "I knew this day would come, Emily. Just didn't think it'd take this long." His words hit like a stone breaking a still pond. James explained that 3 years ago he'd noticed issues at Ashford's IVF clinic, which helped couples like Emily and Michael conceive their twins and Sophie. "There were discrepancies in the records," he said, voice low enough she leaned in to hear. "Lab reports didn't match actual procedures. I dug deeper and found they were swapping sperm samples without telling patients. Emily's throat tightened. What do you mean? Who did that? James met her eyes. Michael knew everything. He didn't just know, he signed off on it, including your case. Her world shattered. She remembered the grueling IVF years, the failed attempts, the tears, the joy when Noah, Liam, and Sophie were born. Michael had held her hand, promising they'd get through it together. Now James's words tore those memories apart. Why? She whispered, voice breaking. James sipped his coffee, gaze distant. Michael has a genetic heart condition. Not severe for him, but a 50% chance of passing it to his kids. A doctor like him, with his ego, couldn't risk flawed children, or anyone knowing he wasn't perfect. He made sure his sample was never used. Emily gripped the table, nails biting into the wood. You're saying, my kids aren't... James nodded slowly, sliding a small USB drive across the table. Hospital records, Michael's signatures. Proof he ordered the sample swaps. I've had it for years, but never had the guts to go public. It's yours now. She left the coffee shop with the USB in her pocket, feeling like she carried a bomb. Michael hadn't just cheated with Rachel or hidden money, he'd stolen her right to know the truth about the children she loved more than life. In the car, she didn't cry. Instead, a fire roared inside her, fierce and unyielding. Michael had built an empire of lies, but Emily would be the one to tear it down. Emily Thompson sat in a modest rented room on the outskirts of Charlotte, far from the prying eyes of neighbors and the whispers at her kids' school. Her laptop glowed in front of her, displaying files from the U-beater James Carter had given her. Each line of text, each of Michael's signatures, cut into her heart like a knife, but they no longer made her tremble. Instead, they fueled a plan taking shape, one not just to protect her children, but to make Michael pay for every lie he'd spun. She'd handed the UB to Patricia Hayes, her lawyer, who practically leaped when she saw the contents. This is gold, Emily, Patricia said, eyes gleaming. If we can prove Michael tampered with the IVF process, his career's toast, his reputation, his wealth, everything he's built will crumble. But we need more. Ironclad evidence. Emily nodded. She knew it, and she was ready to go all in. That night, as Noah and Liam hunched over homework at the dining table and Sophie scribbled pink flowers on scrap paper, Emily watched them quietly. Noah's easy grin, Liam's curious gaze, the way Sophie tilted her head when focused. They were her world. But James Carter's words echoed. They're not Michael's. The thought sliced through her. She loved her kids beyond measure, but the truth about their origins could change everything. Not just for her, but for them down the line. She needed certainty. Emily reached out to a discreet DNA lab, one where no one would recognize her as the wife of famed surgeon Michael Thompson. One night, after the kids were asleep, she gently gathered a few strands of hair from Noah, Liam, and Sophie's pillows. She also grabbed an old comb Michael had left behind when he moved in with Rachel Harper. She sent the samples off, her nerves fraying as she waited, each day dragging like a year. Meanwhile, Michael grew bolder. He pushed for a quick divorce, demanded primary custody, and had his lawyer send letters claiming Emily was emotionally unstable and financially unfit to raise the kids. Those letters only steeled her resolve. While awaiting the DNA results, Emily dug deeper into Blue Ridge Ventures, the shadowy company tied to Michael. She hired a private investigator who uncovered that the money from their joint account didn't stop at Blue Ridge. It flowed to offshore accounts, so murky even the PI whistled. Your husband's not just cheating, Mrs. Thompson. He's playing a much bigger game. The DNA results arrived on a Wednesday morning, delivered via email. Emily sat in her car, parked outside Sophie's school, opening the laptop with icy hands. The report was blunt. The tested father, Michael Thompson, is not the biological father of the tested individuals. Probability of paternity, 0%. She read it again and again, as if staring could rewrite the words, but they stayed the same. Noah, Liam, Sophie, the children she'd carried and cherished, weren't Michael's. He had deliberately swapped sperm samples during their IVF, not just to hide his genetic heart condition, but to control her life, molding her into his perfect picture without giving her a choice. Emily shut the laptop and stared out the windshield. She didn't cry. She'd shed enough tears over the lipstick stain, over Rachel's texts. Now, she felt a cold clarity. Michael hadn't just betrayed her with another woman. He'd stolen the truth about her family, about the kids she'd devoted her life to loving and protecting. But he'd miscalculated one thing. Emily wasn't the type to break. She sprang into action. She contacted James Carter again, asking for a list of families who'd used Ashford's IVF clinic when Michael was in charge. She made calls, sent letters, even knocked on doors. Most turned her away, unwilling to face the possibility that their children might not be what they believed. But 4 families agreed to meet. The Millers had twins who looked like no one in their family. The Patels were baffled by their daughter's illness with no family history. Each story shared a thread. Michael, with his reassuring smile, had personally overseen their cases. One afternoon, Emily met Laura Bennett, a former nurse at Ashford's clinic. Laura lived in a cramped apartment, surrounded by boxes of old files. Her hands shook as she handed Emily a worn notebook. "I wrote it all down," she whispered. "Every sample swap, every signature, every time Michael gave an order without explaining. I thought no one would believe me, so I stayed quiet." In the notebook, Michael's signature appeared dozens of times, including on Emily's case. Sample replaced due to quality concerns. Donor identity not recorded. Emily photographed every page, her pulse racing. This wasn't just evidence against Michael, it was the key to unraveling a web of deceit. She knew she held something that could destroy him completely, but she also knew it would hurt others, including her kids. That night, watching Sophie sleep, her blonde hair fanned across the pillow, Emily wondered, what will she think if she knows? But then she clenched her fists. The truth might sting, but lies were crueler. She'd do whatever it took to shield her children and to make Michael face the consequences of his choices. Emily Thompson was no longer the woman who lingered in her husband's shadow. In her small Charlotte apartment, hidden from nosy neighbors, she spread out a war map across the table. Bank records, IVF files, Laura's scribbled notebook, and the stark DNA report confirming Noah, Liam, and Sophie weren't Michael's biological children. Each document was a bullet, and Emily was loading her gun. She wasn't in a rush. Michael had spent 15 years weaving his web of lies. She'd take a few months to unravel it. Patricia Hayes, her lawyer, had become her fiercest ally. "You're sitting on a powder keg, Emily," Patricia said, flipping through Laura's notebook. "But to win, we need more. Someone still at Ashford Hospital, or harder financial proof." Emily nodded, her gaze steely. She knew she had to play weak, let Michael and Rachel Harper think she'd given up. Only when their guard was down would she strike. She started by reaching out to more families affected by Ashford's IVF clinic. Through late-night calls and tearful coffee shop meetings, she connected with 6 more couples. The Carters had a son with an unexplained rare disease. The Nguyens were stunned by their daughter's eye color, unlike anyone in their family. Each recounted how Michael, with his trustworthy charm, had promised to handle everything. Emily listened, took notes, and turned their shared pain into power. She formed a private group where the families swapped details, from odd bills to Michael's name in their records. At the same time, Emily hired a new private investigator, Jack Riley, to chase the trail of Blue Ridge Ventures. Jack, with his salt and pepper hair and razor-sharp eyes, returned after 2 weeks with a report that left her breathless. "The money didn't just go overseas," he said, voice low. "It paid off the hospital officials, bought silence. And Rachel Harper, she's not just Michael's mistress." Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" Jack slid a folder across the table. Rachel Harper was really Rachel Morgan, daughter of Elizabeth Morgan, a patient who died 5 years ago during a surgery Michael botched. The official report blamed Elizabeth's medication mix-up, but Jack uncovered internal records. Michael had operated while exhausted after a weekend of partying, and the hospital covered up his mistake. The Morgans got a hefty settlement, but Rachel, then 25, lost her mother and her faith. She changed her last name, joined Ashford, and wormed her way into Michael's life, not just for love, but for revenge. Emily sat still, clutching the report. Rachel wasn't some naive fling. She had her own agenda, and that made things trickier. A fleeting thought crossed her mind. Should she reach out to Rachel, propose an alliance? No. Rachel was driven by emotion, while Emily needed precision. She tucked the report away, saving it for the perfect moment. Meanwhile, she played the broken wife in front of Michael. At divorce mediation sessions, she kept her head down, agreeing to unfair terms like shared custody or meager support payments. Michael, smug as ever, started to let his guard slip. He openly brought Rachel to school events, even let her stay over at his new condo when the kids visited. Sophie once said, innocently, "Miss Rachel gave me candy, but I don't like her perfume." Emily smiled at her daughter, but inside, she cataloged every detail. She began recording every conversation with Michael, using a hidden phone app. One afternoon, as they discussed the kids' pickup schedule, she steered the talk carefully. "Michael, you ever worry the kids might inherit your heart condition?" she asked, voice soft. Michael, scrolling his phone, answered without thinking. "Nah, I checked. They're fine." Emily pressed, like it was just a chat. "Checked how? You didn't tell me. I'm their mom." Michael shrugged. "I'm a doctor, Emily. I know what I'm doing." The recording captured it all. His arrogance, his lie about the kids' origins. Emily also tracked down David Kim, a former Ashford lab tech who'd worked under Michael. David now worked at a small clinic, but memories of Ashford still shook him. Over 3 beers in a dimly lit bar, he spilled. "Michael ordered sperm sample swaps multiple times. I pushed back, but he said it was for patient benefit. I quit because I couldn't stomach it." David agreed to testify as long as his name stayed out of the spotlight. Every piece Emily gathered, documents, testimonies, recordings, was locked in a new safe Michael couldn't touch. She knew she wasn't just building a case against him, but against the system that had shielded him. Deep down, she was doing it for Noah, Liam, and Sophie. The truth about their origins might hurt, but she wanted them to grow up in a world free from lies. One evening, as she checked her email, a message from Jack Riley popped up. Subject: Rachel Harper, the final secret. Emily's heart raced as she opened it. Rachel wasn't just avenging her mother. She'd secretly recorded conversations with Michael, where he admitted to botching Elizabeth Morgan's surgery and the hospital's cover-up. Rachel kept them as leverage, but Jack had hacked her cloud storage. "You want to use this?" he asked over the phone. Emily smiled, her first real smile in months. "Not yet, Jack. Keep it safe. Our moment's coming." The fateful evening in Charlotte arrived under an ominous sky. Dark clouds churned above, lightning flashing without rain, as if nature itself held its breath for what was to come. Emily Thompson stepped into the Grand Regency Hotel, where Ashford Hospital's annual gala, the year's biggest event, drew the city's medical elite. She wore a sleek black dress, understated but striking, her hair loose, diamond earrings glinting under the chandeliers. Gone was the Emily of backyard BBQs, or the silent wife behind Michael. Tonight, she was a warrior, here to end it all. In her small clutch were her weapons: James Carter's USB, recordings of Michael's confessions, and a white envelope holding the DNA report, her final blow. For 3 weeks, she'd worked with Special Agent Robert Dawson from the Medical Fraud Investigation Unit. Dawson, a tall man with eyes sharp as blades, had built a case against Michael and Ashford's IVF clinic using Emily's evidence. "You sure, Thompson?" he'd asked that morning as she left his office. "After tonight, there's no going back." Emily's smile was icy. "I've never been surer." Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers bathed tuxedos and evening gowns in golden light. Michael stood near the stage, his tuxedo pristine, arm around Rachel Harper. She wore a fiery red dress, the shade of the lipstick that sparked Emily's nightmare. Michael was all smiles, shaking hands, soaking up praise for his upcoming Doctor of the Year award, a nod to his outstanding contributions and flawless ethics. Emily watched from afar, her heart no longer aching, only honed to a razor's edge. He didn't know that, 30 minutes earlier, in a private boardroom, she'd laid out her case to the hospital board. Laura's records, David Kim's testimony, Blue Ridge Ventures' financial trail. Board chair Dr. Margaret Ellis had gone pale. "If this is true," she'd said, voice trembling, "we're facing an unprecedented scandal." Emily glided through the crowd, accepting pitying nods and whispers from colleagues' wives. "So brave, coming tonight," one said, patting her shoulder. Emily smiled just enough to deflect suspicion. She caught Rachel's glance from across the room, a flicker of unease before she turned away. Rachel didn't know Emily held her secret, the truth about her mother, Elizabeth Morgan, and her revenge plot. But tonight, Rachel was just a pawn in Emily's game. The award ceremony began. Dr. Ellis took the stage, her voice steady as she introduced Michael. "A dedicated physician who saved countless lives," she said, but Emily saw the strain in her smile. Michael strode up, accepted the crystal trophy, and spoke with his usual polish. "Medicine is about trust," he said, scanning the room. "Ethics guide us through the toughest choices." Emily stood in the corner, clutching her bag. "Ethics, Michael? You're about to learn what that word means. As he left the stage to applause, no one noticed Special Agent Dawson and 3 officers quietly positioned at the exits. Emily waited until Michael and Rachel slipped into the hallway, heading for a limo to La Dolce Vita, the restaurant where he'd proposed to her 15 years ago. She followed, her steps light but resolute, and called his name. Michael. He turned, surprised, then smirked. Emily? Didn't expect you to come congratulate me. Rachel stood beside him, her red dress vivid as blood, her eyes flickering between curiosity and worry. Emily stepped forward, placing the white envelope in his hand. Congrats on your freedom, she said, her voice chillingly calm. But before you go, read this. Michael frowned, tearing it open. The DNA report slid out, and she watched his face shift, smugness to confusion, then panic. What? No way, he muttered, hands shaking. Rachel peered over his shoulder, eyes widening. It's real, Emily said, her voice cutting like a blade. You swapped the sperm samples in our IVF. Noah, Liam, Sophie. They're not yours, and you knew it from the start. You lied to me, to them, for 15 years. Michael tried to rally. You're making this up, Emily. You're unhinged. But his voice cracked, and Rachel stepped back, as if slapped. Emily tilted her head, her smile cold. Making it up? Then how will you explain this to the hospital board? She nodded toward the hallway where Dr. Ellis and Dawson approached, flanked by 2 plainclothes officers. Or the police, or our kids. Dawson stepped forward, his voice low but firm. Dr. Michael Thompson, you're under arrest for medical fraud, money laundering, and violations of the Medical Practice Act. He recited Miranda rights as Michael stood frozen, the crystal trophy slipping from his hand, shattering on the floor. Rachel covered her face, mumbling, I didn't know about the kids. Emily locked eyes with Michael, unflinching. 15 years, Michael. You had 15 years to live your lie. It took me 3 months to tear it apart. As the officers led him away, she turned to Rachel, now slumped in a chair. You wanted revenge for your mom, Emily said softly. I get it. But tonight, justice belongs to all of us. She walked out of the hotel as rain began to fall, cool drops washing away the last of her pain. Michael had lost, not just to her, but to the truth he'd tried to bury. The rain poured outside the Grand Regency, but for Emily Thompson, the real storm had passed. She stood under the awning, watching the police car's lights fade into Charlotte's night, carrying Michael and his 15 years of lies with them. Rachel Harper remained in the hallway, her red dress crumpled, her eyes lost, as if she'd misplaced both her purpose and herself. Emily didn't speak to her again. Rachel had her own story, but tonight, justice belonged to everyone Michael had manipulated. In the weeks that followed, the story erupted like wildfire. Headlines screamed across the Charlotte Observer to the New York Times. Renowned doctor arrested for medical fraud and IVF manipulation. Ashford Hospital's IVF clinic was shuttered for investigation, and dozens of families came forward, demanding DNA tests for their children. Social media blazed with debates, outrage over trampled medical ethics, sympathy for the deceived families. Michael Thompson's name, once a beacon of perfection, was now synonymous with scandal. Emily became an unwilling focal point. Reporters hounded her, clamoring for interviews with the wife who exposed her husband. She declined every request, not out of fear, but to shield Noah, Liam, and Sophie from the spotlight. The kids didn't yet know the full truth, and she needed time to prepare, when they were old enough to grasp it and when she was strong enough to explain without breaking. Legally, Michael faced a barrage of charges: medical fraud, money laundering, ethical violations. His license was revoked instantly, his assets frozen for scrutiny. Patricia Hayes, with the grin of a victorious warrior, ensured every dollar Michael hid through Blue Ridge Ventures was tracked. A trust fund was set up for the kids, securing their future no matter what the storm swept away. Emily won full custody, not to erase Michael from their lives, but because she knew he no longer deserved their trust. One morning, months after the gala, Emily got a call from Dr. James Carter. Ashford's forming an ethics committee to oversee reproductive services when the clinic reopens, he said, his voice steady and warm. They want me to lead it, but I suggested you co-chair. No one understands what went wrong better than you. Emily paused, her hand still on her coffee mug. For 15 years, she'd been Michael Thompson's wife, the flawless party host, the devoted mom. Now, she was being asked to step forward as herself, Emily Thompson, the woman who'd shaken a system to its core. She accepted, not just for herself, but for families like the Millers, the Patels, and countless others she'd met. Working with James, she dove into medical regulations, ensuring no one else would endure her pain. The work was grueling, long meetings, heated debates, but every step made her feel more alive than ever. One afternoon, Emily met Rachel Harper at a quiet coffee shop. Not as friends, but bound by an odd understanding between two women Michael had manipulated. Rachel now worked at a hospital in Raleigh, piecing her life back together after her revenge plot was overshadowed by Michael's downfall. "Do you regret it?" Rachel asked, stirring her tea slowly. "Exposing everything? The kids will find out someday." Emily gazed out the window, picturing Sophie sketching flowers, Noah and Liam laughing during basketball. "No regrets," she said. "The truth can hurt, but lies kill everything. My kids will know they're loved, no matter where they come from. That's what matters." She returned to her house, the one she'd feared losing when Michael pushed for asset division. Now it stood firm, no longer a prop for a fake American dream, but a home where she rebuilt a real life. She hosted a BBQ again, this time inviting only those who mattered, her kids, a few close friends, and the Millers, who'd become allies through it all. Laughter rang out, the grill sizzled, and for the first time in years, Emily felt unburdened. That night, she stood in Sophie's room, watching her sleep, blonde hair spilled across the pillow. Emily was no longer Michael's shadow, the perfect wife, or a victim of betrayal. She was Emily Thompson, mother, fighter, and above all, herself. She opened the window, letting in a cool breeze thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and a freedom she'd long forgotten. Her story didn't end at the gala. It began here, messy, honest, and entirely her own.